Welcome, everyone. Hope you're doing well. My name is Ishan. I'm a first year graduate student at Purdue University in planetary sciences and astrobiology. I recently gave this department talk of AI in academia because I'm a relatively decent AI user, and I think we're just currently at the precipice of massive shifts in different industries where AI is really stepping in to act as a tool, as a supplement, and really aid in different aspects. And I think that in education and academia, we haven't started having transparent conversations just yet about what AI use looks like in education settings, in academia, in research specifically. And I want to clarify that when I say AI in academia here, I'm not talking about machine learning or hard coding AI models to do data analysis or do actual research with algorithms and stuff like that. I'm more so referring to generative AI or accessible AI that the general public knows and uses. So things like ChatGPT or Claude, I don't know, Gemini, literally any other models that you might be conversing with. One of the other reasons I wanted to give this talk was because I just have a personal passion, and I've been using AI relatively frequently for things to learn concepts, explain things to myself in different ways, different formats, so I can grasp knowledge and apply it to my research. And I want to really stress the point that when we're talking about AI today, we're talking about it as a resource. We're talking about it as a tool that you might be able to add to your kit that's going to help you become a better researcher, a better student. But in no way, shape, or form, you should be considering that AI is going to be a replacement for your thinking. Like, no. The critical thinking aspect is something that's so crucial in a master's or a PhD and in academia that I don't think we're at the point where AI can be replacing any part of critical thinking, and we need to be a little skeptic when we approach AI while being open-minded of accepting the things that it is really good at. That balance of healthy skepticism and open-mindedness, I think, is very necessary, especially as we continue to traverse this landscape that is completely new for all of us. With that said, let's head into some of the key AI milestones. Of course, these are not all of them, but I wanted to give a very short and quick summary of some of the main ones where in 1950, scientist Alan Turing proposed the Turing test, which was the first formal idea of machine intelligence. The idea behind that test is to examine whether a machine can think, perform like a human. And AI in today's world, especially generative AI like ChatGPT, it is trying to mimic human thoughts and human thought patterns. And when we talk about generative AI, here it's making predictions based on patterns and data that it's learning from. In 1997, that's when another major milestone came in where IBM supercomputer Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov, who was the chess champion. This was the first time where a machine actually beat a human in chess, so it was relatively a big deal. But really, the biggest key milestone here to talk about and mention is in 2022 of November when ChatGPT went public, because this marked the point where AI was not just for researchers anymore. AI was not just for people who knew computer science. It became accessible and conversational for everyone, and people who didn't know any coding could be using the same kind or similar kind of tools to really help them in whatever it is that they're doing. And since even 2022, ChatGPT has evolved so much. We have multiple models and multiple use cases that have evolved. And I feel like over the next few years, the use cases that we talk about today are probably going to evolve as well as we continue to see better models, better rollouts over the next few years. With that basic, I should add, this presentation is mostly for me to talk about the use cases that I've been using, and also to add a little bit perspective for some of the professors or educators as well. But this is not focused on explaining what AI is. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, I would definitely recommend you checking out YouTube videos by creators who are experienced in AI specifically, have studied that as a field. Or you can also, if you really want to learn it for yourself, you can take courses on Coursera with Andrew New, who's one of the foundational fathers of AI, especially in the current day and age, from Stanford. So if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty stuff, I'd highly recommend checking out other YouTube videos. But if you're just a researcher who's looking to improve the use of AI, or looking to understand how you can better use AI, let's start talking about that. So student use cases. One of the first use cases I want to go over is learning and understanding complex concepts with the help of any sort of AI model. We have a lot of dense lectures, information being thrown at us from different sources. We have complex scientific papers that we have to read, and there's a ton of equations and concepts that you have to deal with depending on the field that you are in. And AI can really help with learning and understanding complex concepts because it can simplify things, it can explain things in different ways, different formats, and you can easily go back and forth with it while also cross-referencing different ideas and different patterns. This is not something that you would have been able to do before AI came into the picture. So this is a great way to take advantage of ChatGPT like models, where you can go back and forth with them and literally treat it like a tutor, because you can ask all the stupid questions or the silly questions that you would otherwise be afraid to ask in class or to your professor or to your teacher. One of the examples from my personal experiences that I want to include here is that I'm a technical researcher in chemistry, but I have no geology background. So I asked ChatGPT 4.0 to explain to me the geological process of rock formation in a way that's going to complement my technical background, because one of the best ways that I learn is by making analogies to things that I already understand. So if there's something that I understand and something new that I'm learning can make a connection to what I already know and understand well, that kind of information overlap just sits very well in my mind. And you're probably thinking like, yeah, that is one of the ways I learn too. So on that note, I wanted to show you the two different formats that ChatGPT gave me the process. And if you want to, when you first start off, I feel like the summary is a great way to start. So you can just read through that and see, okay, like this, that's cool. Now I know that igneous rock formation, which has the geological process of crystallization from melt, is very similar to something like a phase change going from a liquid to solid, which is something that I'm so familiar with that it's bread and butter for me. So now I'm easily able to remember something that I didn't know before, I wasn't an expert in, but now I can make an analogy to something that I do know. And again, this is just one example. Like, this was based on just the first prompt I gave it. So if it's not tailored to my liking, I can always ask a follow-up question. I can always be like, yo, I didn't understand this. Can you explain this to me in a different way? Can you explain this to me like a 5-year-old? And you really have to learn to go back and forth with AI rather than just taking the first answer that it gives you. Another example is how I've been using the voice mode in ChatGPT to learn and understand complex concepts, because I just finished my first year of my PhD program, and I'm about to take my qualifications exam in just a few months. So I've been reading and practicing for that. And the format of that qualifications exam is a back and forth between you and the professors, where your committee asks you questions and you're answering the questions and you're going back and forth. I think the best way to practice for exams like that is to mirror that kind of format before you even go into it, so that you're comfortable and used to it. Which is why using voice mode in ChatGPT has been like my go-to. Every time I'm on recently, the past 2 times that I've used it, I've been on long drives, like 4-hour drives, and I've spent like 30 minutes to an hour just like conversing with AI, like practicing for my exam. And that way I'm able to just verbally say, yo, I gave the prompt of, I have my qualifications exam, I'm a PhD student in planetary sciences, astrobiology. Here are the topics that are going to be covered. And then I asked ChatGPT to pretend as if it's a PhD professor and ask it to, every time it asks me a question, to start digging into the things that I don't know, so that I can also then to take a note of that, so I can create a study guide of the things that I don't know, so I can actually learn those things later on after I've had this study session with ChatGPT. It's literally like having a personal tutor in my phone. After I gave it this prompt, it was like, okay, can you start walking me through the key factors that determine the habitability of an exoplanet, include aspects like habitable zone, atmospheric composition, other relevant geochemical cycles. So I answered the question, it gave me a response, then asked me the next question, and you can really go, you can build this back and forth with GPT that it just makes it, like I said, a personal tutor that can really be tailored to your learning style and the way that you learn. Another wonderful use case that I found for ChatGPT recently is summarizing and organizing notes from lectures, from seminars, etc. The problem here is that passive note taking just honestly takes up time and brain power. And I'm someone who, dude, I hate taking notes. I hated taking notes even when I was younger. And it was like when teachers would force me to annotate stuff and take notes, I'd be like, why do I need to do this? This is so easy to understand. Like, why are you making me do this? And I feel like it's a waste of time. Now, it depends on what topic it is that you're working on. So that excuse can't fit in everywhere. But what I've come to realize is that AI can really help with that tedious task of taking the notes, summarizing, sorting, and then generating study material from it. One of the examples that I want to give here is from one of my seminar classes, where every single week we attend a seminar that's given by a scientist who may or may not be in the field that you're in, so it's pretty diverse. And sometimes it's very difficult to understand a technical researcher who's very much outside of your field and in a completely different space, and it can sound like they're almost speaking gibberish, which can't lie, been in a lot of those seminars over the past year or so. This is an example of one that I did relatively understood okay-ish, because I understood what neural networks were, what the application of it was in this context, and what I did with GPT was I would just take broken notes and write down any thoughts I have, and that's the input that you can see in the first two pictures here on the left. And then I gave it the prompt of, can you summarize the overall notes so they're cohesive, concise, and can give any reader information on what was discussed in the seminar. And the first page on the right is what it gave me. And that's so clean and neat. And that was just based on one prompt. And ideally, I would say, don't just go off from the first prompt. Use that as a starting point and start going back and forth with GPT, so you can really tailor the notes in a way that you want them and that you find useful, if you want to come back to them in the future, or if you need to come back to them in the future for studying purposes or literally anything else. Another use case is writer's block, really getting unstuck when writing abstracts for conferences or any sort of writing material for your classes. Because the thing is that even statements or fellowship applications and such, we all have blank page paralysis. We all hit writer's block, where starting is really the hardest part. It's always easier to edit something once it's in front of you, once you have something. And AI, I'm not saying that you're gonna have to use AI to write all your stuff. Like, I'm telling you, do not do that, bro. That's, if you're not using your thinking power to really do the work, I don't know, maybe you need to reconsider whether you want to be doing that work or not. But what I am saying with AI is that you can generate outlines and bare bones drafts, and you can refine scattered thoughts and notes, and then take that and then build on it. So the example use case I'm using here is, I'm preparing for a conference abstract on my research work in thermochemical modeling. Here's a brain dump of my ideas, turn it into an outline with a title, intro hook, key points, and a closing sentence. And it gives me something on the right. Now, Again, don't just copy and paste this thing, please, bro. I'm begging you, do not do that. That doesn't teach you anything. You didn't learn anything from this process. And honestly, like, there's gonna be stuff that it's gonna be very easy to tell that it wasn't you who wrote this. And I'm gonna say one of those things is this M dash that you see in the closing sentence in the end. Like, the use of this has been increasing so much ever since ChatGPT came out. Like, whenever I see an M dash, I'm like, all right, like, there's probably some funky going on. But again, you can use this as a starting point. You read through this, you parse through this, you're like, okay, I like this part, I'm gonna write it this way, and then you build on that. So really use it to get over the writer's block, really get over that first activation energy to get started. Another use case is literature reviews and cross-disciplinary reading. When I say literature reviews here, I'm not saying that you find sources with just ChatGPT. I'm saying lit reviews in a way where if you want to compile information from several different documents, what you can do is feed ChatGPT different PDFs and ask it for a summary of those things. Like, if you're reading 10, 12 papers and you only need one idea from each of them that overlaps, that is something ChatGPT can be very good at. It's very good at sorting through data. Like, if it has actual PDFs, if it has things that you wanted to reference and you have it in writing in a PDF, bro, I'm telling you, ChatGPT is going to be fine. Most of the times, it's not going to hallucinate. It only hallucinates when you ask it for stuff that's like not already out there and the answers are just like not there. But when you give it data, when you have PDFs of papers and you want to ask back and forth questions on those, bro, it does an amazing job. And I mean, sure, it might make mistakes 5% of the times, but so do humans. So in that way, don't be afraid of it. Really use it as a tool. And again, just to drive that point home, literature reviews, you can also go into Scholar GPT, Academic GPT. These are custom GPTs that people have built and put out that have access to journals, so you can find reliable sources through that as well. But yeah, AI can really help summarize multiple papers simultaneously, identify connections, gaps, and really translate that dense language that is mostly present in every scientific paper. I know I'm not the only one who's been like, all right, I have no idea what this sentence means. So you do yourself a favor. Whenever you're trying to understand papers, really go back and forth with ChatGPT and ask it stuff that you don't know so that you can understand the paper better. Like, you need to have an understanding of the paper that you're reading or using for your research, because most likely, like, you're using it for intro, like your introduction, background stuff. But if you're using it for methods, like someone has done a similar method and you're trying to mirror it, bro, you need to like get into the nitty gritty and really understand it. And in that case, like, back and forth is going to be the most conducive thing, in addition to you reading the paper yourself. Like, I'm not saying that you're going to, like, do not, bro, please, do not use AI to just like simply skip reading the paper. Like, that's not what this is about. It's about getting a deeper understanding and really solidifying that learning process in your mind so that you can become a better researcher. The other thing is cross-disciplinary reading, and for that, I just want to head right into the example where I'm a technical researcher in chemistry, but I found this paper on distribution of galaxy rotation in James Webb Space Telescope Advanced Deep Extragalactic Survey data, and because this made the reason I'm interested in this is because it made the news of supporting the cosmological hypothesis that our universe is in a black hole, and they determined this by studying the rotation rates of many different galaxies from our perspective. And due to the discrepancy in the rotation rates and that they're not uniform, they it supports or adds on to the hypothesis of our universe being in a black hole. If you really want to get into it, find this paper, read more on it. But I wouldn't have been able to explain this to you right now if I hadn't used ChatGPT to help me read this paper and understand what they did, why they did it, and why that supports the cosmological hypothesis. And this is a prompt that I gave, and this is absolutely phenomenal to help you get an idea of research work that goes on beyond your, traditional knowledge or traditional scope. And I just feel like for curiosity reasons or for, I don't know, research reasons, this is extremely powerful. Like being able to understand something on a technical level while still not having the actual background that the paper authors have, like that's extremely powerful in for yourself and also for communicating research. And then it spit out the title summary, the methods used, assumptions, limitations, main argument, interpretation, coding, significance, and gave me the bottom line. But again, be wary of this. Like, read these things and use this as a starting point. But if you want data from the paper, if you're looking for very specific things after ChatGPT gives that to you, go back to the paper, cross reference, check if it got the right thing or not. Because you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you want one data point from one paper and it gets it wrong. Like, that's why critical thinking, it still need it still needs to be in the play. AI is not a replacement for critical thinking, but it is here to supplement that by handling the tedious stuff for you and helping you to learn things. One of the other best use cases is coding help, which I'm not going to head into too much in this presentation, but I did want to mention it. And when I gave this talk to the department folks, one of the professors and my advisor, Dr. Ben Pierce, presented on how he used AI in his classroom to support students with coding things. And since he went in depth with that, I didn't really cover that in my presentation. But I will say from my personal experience, it's a helpful tool to debug code, troubleshoot things, figure out what's going wrong, how to actually fix it. Like, again, treat it like a rubber duck. If you haven't heard of the rubber duck, look it up, but I'm gonna give you a quick spiel. Every coder, academia, industry, wherever, has this thing called the rubber duck. And the idea behind it is that every time you're stuck on a situation, before you ask someone for help, you talk to the rubber duck. And I know it sounds silly, but it's so helpful because a lot of the times when you start talking the problem out, your brain is just going, and you're like, oh, maybe I can try this, but I've tried this, it didn't work. Oh, what if I do this instead? I myself have had to do that because I used to work in the healthcare tech industry and they gave us an actual physical rubber duck. But use ChatGPT like that. Go back and forth with it. Don't just trust what it's saying. Be skeptic of what it's saying, but also understand that it does some stuff really, really well, and that when the conjunction happens of human and AI, like that's the ideal case scenario here. That's what we want to go for, is using it as a tool to supplement. But coding help, apart from that, I would also add that you can generate Python scripts for different graphs and figures and such. You don't have to add your own data in ChatGPT. What you can do is just outline, I want to create a graph with this data that I will input later, XXX, YYY. I want the graph to look like this, specify the requirements, and it writes you the script. And then you copy and paste that script, and then you insert your data, modify the script depending on how you want some of the styling to be. And something that would have taken you like 30 plus minutes in the past to create just one figure you can now do in like 5-10 minutes. Like, that's a lot of time that you'd be saving. So please consider using AI for that. Some professor use cases that I want to go over from my personal experience, and I didn't head in too much detail into this because I really wanted the two professors who were presenting, to have more time on discussing their experiences and what professors can do, but this is based on some of my experiences with my recent classrooms. First, redesigning assignments. We are so used to doing tedious work or busy work for our undergrad classes and such that now some of it can really just literally be done with AI, and perhaps it's time that professors start assuming that students are going to use AI for the tedious tasks. So instead of still wanting them to do the tedious things, just ask them to have AI do it, but then critique those things. so that the students can then focus on the higher order thinking tasks. Like, you can ask the students to fact check AI output, really compare what AI is saying versus what their thoughts are, and encouraging prompt engineering, sorry, that really that back and forth as a skill, because it really is. Really, all this to drive the point home, like, banning AI is not going to be the solution in classrooms. Like, you could try that, and anyone can try that, but we all know from experience that banning something never really takes it away. It just only limits accessibility, and it hinders progress and growth. That's all I'm gonna say on that. So some final thoughts. Yeah, I should say, I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to convince you to use ChatGPT or to use any other AI tools, but I'm just sharing that this is a tool that I've been using that's been extremely helpful for me, and that you're not behind. It's not too late to start learning AI if you haven't done so already. It's not, and treat it like it's not here to replace your mind, but here to supplement it and free some of the space up. So you're using it as a starting point, double checking any important information, and like I said earlier, treat it like a rubber duck, go back and forth with it, treat it like a tutor. With that said, I thank you for your time, attention, tuning in with me. And in the talk that I gave to the department, we headed into some discussion questions. So I'm gonna leave those up here for a quick minute, grab some water, and we'll head into a couple of these. One of the questions we got from the group, one of the students in the room at the time was, AI is hallucinating sometimes. Like, how do you face that issue? What do you do when that happens? And to that, I would respond, AI hallucinates more on things that it doesn't know. And that goes back to the point of data. If it has data, if it has good data, should I add, it's not going to hallucinate as much. So if you have papers, you have PDFs that you want summaries of, bro, like, it's going to do an extremely good job at that, because it's not trying to come up with something new. It's only summarizing data that it already has. It's almost like you're control Fing in a PDF, like yourself. One of the hesitations or concerns that one of the professors brought up was the process of learning itself needs some sort of pain, because it really helps you learn. And also the concern that students are just going to use ChatGPT to get all the answers without really understanding anything and such. And to that, my response is that we've had like these kinds of similar tools, or similar kind of ways to get answers if you just want to get by in your classes. Like, we've had Chegg before. Chegg is not new. It's been around for years. And I used it in my undergrad classes sometimes, because things were too complex and I didn't have any like tutor or someone to ask complex questions to. But the only difference now is that it's so accessible that you can bypass learning. But in that case, I think it really falls on you as a student to ensure that, you're not taking a class just for a mere requirement. Like, you're taking something to learn. Like, you're in this to learn and to make yourself better as a student, as a researcher. And if that goal is not strong or clear to you as to why you're doing it, then chances are you're going to want to take the shortcuts. But that's only gonna harm you in the future, bro. Like, genuinely, if you don't know what it is that you're talking about, if you don't know what it is that you're doing, and you're just vibe coding all the time, and you're not careful with any of the security considerations, or this is just an example, but you have to know your topic of research in depth to an extent where you should be able to explain it without the use of AI. Like, if someone asks you something, something basic, you should be able to express that and communicate that. And That's why AI is not going to replace you. It can be there as a tool to help you understand things so that you can become that person who's capable of explaining those things to people to people outside of science who don't understand or who haven't had exposure to it just yet. But if you have any questions or you have any use cases that you've used AI for in your work, please let me know down in the comments below. With that said, I'll wrap it up here. And again, I thank you for your time, your attention, tuning in with me. And I will catch you in one of the next videos.